Hello, everyone. My name is TrupsLP, and welcome to another iteration of our political recaps. As always, I am joined by the Lord Moist himself, Omegon. Say hello, Omegon.
Hello.
That was a lot more moist than I
I
expected.
put it really close to the microphone. I'm very sorry.
I just hear this rushing water. I'm like, oh, look, it's your comment
I thought I'd
section.
take a wicked whiz and a horn, see how it tasted. Yeah, I'm a freak. Hello, SS Lovebirds, Jasmine, Serene, Eden, Dr. Cap, Karma, Prospero, Devs Red, Direct Greyhound, Take Out Joan, Dominion Revelation. Hope you're all well. How is Trups LP on Green Pony? How are you all? Trups.
Did you just call me Hungry Pony? Oh,
I
Green
did. I
Pony.
called a Green Pony. Yeah, I called you a Green Pony. Congratulations.
Yeah.
How are you?
I'm just exhausted. I have been working very late as of recently.
I'm very sorry to hear that. I hope it doesn't stay like that forever.
No, that's also part of the reason why it's terrifying, because I'm a contractor, so I have a very short time window to get a lot of work done.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Not relatable, but I understand it.
You're right. You have a deadline, you got to meet it, and time doesn't stop.
You're quite right.
So
But
that's what I've been up to. How about you?
well, I've excuse me. It's been a bit unusual, really, because some good things have been going on. I've been, I finished that Amber Lynn video, so I'm done with that now. I can officially wash my hands of her.
I have to actually take like a good amount of time to sit and decide to watch that.
Yeah, don't. It's just me calling someone a fat cunt for an hour. If you want to
Hey,
see
man,
me, if you want to see me get, go on.
I was gonna say that's what people want, though.
True, but it was demonetized, so I don't care anymore.
Oh,
Unsurprisingly, I guess I have to accept that there was always going to be that consequence.
you knew that was gonna happen.
I bought a skull to go with my Necronomicon pages.
I saw that.
Yeah, it looks cool, right? I
Oh,
bought it.
I fucking love it.
It was in a bath bomb shop.
Yeah,
They have a bunch
well,
of steampunk
New
statues as
Age
well.
Neo Wiccans like to insert their cool goth shit
I
everywhere,
quite
and
like.
I don't like them as people,
I quite
but
like it.
like,
I gave it to my nephew
yeah, I
today to
like their
hold,
shit.
and my nephew, no joke, he held it up, looked at it, tapped it, and then just launched it. He has he's obviously quite disabled, but he has a very, very, very strong throwing arm, and it was quite impressive. It's quite heavy. I've been doing other things, but I obviously today I went to see my sister because I was going to meet my new nephew, and but she wasn't home, so I instead spent the day with my other niece, who with a different sister whose birthday was today. So I did
Yeah,
that.
everyone's congratulating you on the
That's
new nephew.
Thank you. He's a jelly bean, and then I heard all this ruckus on Twitter, the Vox Apocalypse hashtag, and I saw everyone I knew getting. I went on Irate Bear's stream just before I left, actually, and I heard he told me about it, and I kind of felt like the majority of people that he mentioned, I don't know. I wanted to know more about why they were. I needed to know why they were demonetized. I needed to see the emails ideally because I didn't want to know. I wanted to know if there was a correlation or not, and that I was kind of curious about.
Right.
And the majority were I saw on Twitter were taking was, this is Carlos Maz's fault. I'm not convinced. It isn't. I knew about the rule terms of service changing back in January, and everyone knew that. That they introduced a very an unusual word. Let me go and pull it up because it bugged me so much. It
I
was
remember when they had first announced this and everyone freaked out. I guess everyone forgot.
the word that they brought. It was a really odd word. Where is it? It's going to bug me. Borderline. Reducing borderline content and raising up authoritative voices. Borderline being the operative word here. That.
See, the operative word for me was authoritative.
Yeah, I kind of got that as well, but I wanted to focus on the borderline part because of what they were interpreting as borderline content.
Well, here's an example, right? So, I'm an expert in certain fields, as because I work in those fields.
Yes, Rip Varg,
Would
by the
I
way.
be considered? What?
So channel Rip Varg. Carry on.
I don't know who that is.
You're
Who's
expert in
Varg?
fields.
Oh, yes, yeah. Um, so would I then be an authoritative source on those fields? Well, probably not. So
Hmm.
what is an authoritative source?
It's quite you're quite right there, I guess. Maybe perhaps you are right that the operative word is that. I think I focused on borderline because I found that to be more questionable. Because
I
authoritative, I don't
mean,
know if they were using fallacy to make the authoritative stick, or whether or not it was something else entirely. I wasn't sure.
but it's a valid point regardless. I mean,
True.
there's a lot of things to pick out of their blog post.
Yeah, you look at the blog post, it is... I had considered doing that as the video breakdown, but then I decided, no. I just want to give my opinion on it.
No.
I wanted to give an opinion as opposed to a thought, a bit of a breakdown, because I thought perhaps the more I read it, it might incense me a little more. I didn't want
Hmm.
that. I wanted to be calm and urge people to be cautious and calm and patient. And patient has become a very... I've used that word so many times in so many different things recently. It's starting to bug me that so many people are not being patient. They're not taking their time. They're just jumping. It is the Twitter mob mentality crap. And I found it fascinating that the one person who wasn't all over it was Sophane, who, like me, urged people to be cautious. I found that to be
Well,
fascinating considering how quick he jumps on things.
one could actually argue that it's actually a generational thing. Whereas the newer generation, we'll call it the Twitter generation for all intents and purposes,
Mm-hmm.
um, has basically instant access to communication, to information, and to gratification,
Mm.
all with the infinite amounts of advancement in technology that has culminated in our phones.
Yeah.
Um, there is a certain amount of instant gratification that is expected.
Yeah, you're right. I think there is enough of an argument to be made. A lot of people, I think it is still applicable to previous generations, but in a different way, where people would be so desperate to skip to the end, they would ignore the journey in the middle. Kind of
Oh
never
yeah, well
understand.
that is also a aspect to it, but I just think it's more widespread now because of instant access to information.
Yeah, no, you're quite right. So should we talk about the subject of this entire stream?
Yes, but before we do, I would like to apologize to the audience that I have been postponing a lot of these. The reason we haven't been keeping up with a consistent schedule has actually been because of my schedule and its inconsistencies. So I appreciate everyone who is here, who is all following us around, even though we keep changing the dates on you. So I appreciate it.
As long as it's on a Thursday or Friday, it's quite alright. I think last week we both had valid excuses, so it's quite alright.
Yeah, for all intents and purposes, I was at a wedding last weekend, so
Not
that's
his
why
own
I was
though, so
not.
it's alright. Not his own.
No, not my own. A close friend.
Cool. So Donald Trump came to visit. He finally got his state visit at last. What a glorious time it was, don't you think?
Oh yes, I was so happy.
Did
I
you
I I loved it.
did you keep up with what happened?
So I caught some of the highlights.
Oh, that's good. It's better than nothing, quite frankly. Hello, amused by
Yes.
the way. I think it was. I think by comparison to what I expected, considering his business visit last time, this was a huge improvement. There were many things people picked up on, his tuxedo being one, although I was corrected by somebody last night when they said perhaps the reason for that tailored design was to account for body armour. If that's true, then fair enough. Who on earth would try and attack someone in Buckingham Palace with the Grenadier Guard present is an absolute mystery to me. But if that's what it was, then so be it. Although I do think Trump didn't look too bad in it, to be fair. It
I mean,
looked
he definitely does look pretty
butlery.
full out in the chest, don't you think?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, he's not a small guy,
I'm
though.
looking at a picture. So
He's not a slim... Yeah, I had the thumbnail picture for my for the thumbnail for this. I did try and find the one with them standing together, but the resolution was too low on every picture. But it looked like... I mean, he's not a small guy. So I couldn't be sure because he always wears quite loose-fitted suits as well. If that makes sense. So I couldn't be sure.
I just sent you a couple.
Thank you. It didn't really matter anyway, though, because he still looked all right, and I'll put the picture on the screen for everyone to see. Yeah, so here we are. It's people mocked him. Sophane did. I said I couldn't be sure what that was because I don't wear tuxes anyway. It looked all right to me. I mean,
There are so many different styles of tuxes now. I wouldn't even
I have
begin
seen
to
this
try
style
and
before, though.
pretend to know.
I've seen this style before, so perhaps it wasn't as bad as everyone was saying. I've seen that somewhere else. But I don't know where. Doesn't matter, but everyone was mocking that. The speeches were interesting. I've got the videos for those, and we'll certainly have a look at that. We'll have a look at the protesting, because that was... Yes, we'll talk about that in a moment. That was... I'll use the word to sum it up, lackluster, but as Jeremy Corbyn gave a speech at one, we'll look at that video as well, because we've got plenty of videos for this, and I've got a picture of the Mayor of London who took it upon himself to, instead of meeting with this guy, welcoming him to the city, decided to do something else. I will go and find it quickly. I have it here. Where is it? Oh yeah, here. And of course this led to many people talking about the blimp. Do you remember the blimp?
Oh yes, and I heard what happened to it.
We'll certainly press F in the chat for the poor, defenceless blimp of Trump. Although I can't help but think the blimp that should have been rolled out when a party leader and the Mayor of London were too cowardly to go and see him, even though Trump did eventually reject an offer to meet Corbyn because it's the other way round. He should be begging to see Trump so he could talk to him about the things he doesn't agree with. You don't say, oh, I don't want to meet you, but then when he comes here, go, hey, you should come meet me. Yeah. Hello, Vent, hello, and hello, have we 69 Otters, hope you're well. And Faith. I think it's just pathetic. And this sign, only weak men fear strong women, we know who it was aimed at. It's just pathetic. And most of the people I noticed re-memed this to perfection. A lot of the retweets were, but you're a part of a faith where women have no rights. Which got some people blocked, I think.
But like, are they wrong though?
No. They're really not. That's what's, I guess, the funniest part. So when Trump came to the UK, I saw these on Twitter. I thought I'd share them with you. They don't. The imagery doesn't offend me. It's the font used in the "Oi Trump" with a cock and
Tell
balls.
me it's Comic Sans.
It is, isn't it? In a lawnmower at best. I mean, they could have done it with a strimmer and made it look a bit more refined. I expect nothing short of Times New Roman. We also had "Climate change is real" in reference to Trump being a bit of a climate change denier, which is I'll give them that. They have a point here, don't you think?
I mean, it's kind of convenient for him not to be
Because of the businesses?
on board with all. Well, it's almost convenient for him to be a climate change denier because it helps his business. Yeah.
There were people last night who did tell me that the reason why he pulled out of the Paris Accord was because the environmental whatever it was because it then released the sanctions and rules governing oil and coal in the US. Is that true?
There were a bunch of things actually that had to do with the Paris Accords. A lot of it actually stemmed from Trump thinking it was utter bullshit that we, as one of the countries who has been doing the most to try and curb our usage,
Yeah.
they still invited China to go along with it, and China was like, "Yeah, we'll sign on, but they're the worst pollutants in the world."
Yeah, there's
so,
a bit of hypocrisy there, isn't there?
yeah, it's kind of like a fuck you. It's like, listen, if you're gonna powwow with this dude, fuck off.
I mean, you could maintain your own standards anyway. I mean,
I'm sure,
it's
but
the same
it's better if you don't sign the binding agreement, or
True. I think it's like the UK with the Brexit thing. We should be responsible for our own laws. We shouldn't have others govern for us, and that's the same with that kind of accord. I think we should be.
The same thing with all of these international organizations. Like, for example, who the fuck are we to the UN, and why do we care?
I have no reason to give a shit about the UN. I really don't care
Exactly.
about the UN. You have a fancy building and you guys get paid a lot of money to do what? We essentially...
Also, and it's in our fucking country.
Yeah, that baffles me. I still don't understand why the EU is in Belgium. Or, sorry, North France.
And also, I should point out that no, the UN is technically not in the United States. It just so happens to be in close proximity to New York on a little strip of land that they have marked off as international fucking land.
Ah, that land could have been used for corn.
Well, I mean, the whole fucking city is built on a landfill, so.
Yes, I've heard about that. I remember the jokes in 30 Rock. There was like a long acronym, but it basically the name meant it was like trash pileopolis or something. It was something really stupid because of it being built on landfill, which I thought was quite funny. But at least it's being reused. I mean, it looks like a nice city from distance.
I mean, it's great when you don't live there.
Yeah, I can't imagine anyone there knows how to sleep.
No, they don't. And I've been trying to find a couple of the memes from Trump's visit and all the pictures they took with the Queen, because there's one great fucking clip, or just a shot where the Queen is looking down at Melania's outfit, I assume, and it the fucking text says, "Oh, good, no penis on this one."
That's I like that. I like that. There was okay, so there were a lot of good things that came from the meeting with the Queen. I think, like the Queen did actually like Trump, which is quite nice.
I was actually so happy to see them like powwowing and having a great time.
Yeah, I mean,
It warmed my heart.
It made a difference from the business trip where obviously many pointed out errors he made when it came to addressing Grenadier Guards. That and him leading, and he shouldn't have been doing that because of protocol.
Ooh, but did you see him when he was presented with the guards again? How much better he was?
Yeah, that's the thing I think many don't realise. You can't just learn something by being told straight away. You're going to make a mistake, and he was just unlucky. He made up for it. He got it right the second time. The proper time, I might add. He should have had this state visit a year ago. But he's had it now. I hope he gets it. I hope he gets a second term just to come back with another prime minister. Hopefully not Corbyn, because if that's the case, oh my god, that would be so funny.
You know what the funniest thing is, actually? Trump's demeanor over the whole UK trip was actually the most diplomatic I've seen him in a while.
He must have taken this a lot, because this is a huge deal. Every president has had a state visit, and it's a big deal, regardless of who you are.
Well, it's one of the best. It's one of our closest allies.
Yeah.
So, not to mention all the bullshit he put up.
It's a huge honour to be invited to a state visit, especially. I find it fascinating that so many people were against him, and okay, he's not really a Republican, but there have been Republicans in the past that have come here. It's pathetic, the amount of people that went out their way to protest. Then again, people did protest when Obama came here. I will not deny that. I think people did when Bush came here because of the whole Iraq war. It was messy. People seem to be forgetting this. Perhaps we should move on to some of the protests then that happened during his time.
Yeah, let's do that.
Did you see how many people turned up for them?
No, actually.
Right, well, there's a picture on the stream screen now. That's pretty much it, really. It was incredibly underwhelming. So few people. Apparently, only a third of those that agreed to go. Actually, it was like a Facebook party where you invite people and they say maybe. Might be attending.
Awkward.
Yeah, and they didn't. Yeah, Obama did use it to try and say we won't trade with you if you vote Brexit. That, again, a president interfering with British affairs. Very nice of them. But, in fairness, he was on his way out anyway, so no one gave a fuck. It was... Okay, so the blimp... We'll go on to the blimp, because it's on the screen. It's made its re-emergence. I don't know if they managed to get a new one, because they were after a bigger one originally, weren't they?
They were supposed to, and I was kind of sad.
It even featured on the BBC News, this thing. This got onto the totally not biased BBC News. And it did its tours, it did its rounds, and then it got stabbed. RIP. I mean, they could, fix it. They could fix it. With some rubber glue and a puncture repair kit, they're good. Maybe.
It's also a piece of shit, so, like...
I quite like this blimp, just because it's so pathetic and small, and... Yeah, it just doesn't... I don't know, it just doesn't really work anymore, because he's not orange.
Well, honestly, he wasn't really all that orange to begin with. Like, he had, like, 3 pictures of when he was, like, had a really bad spray tan, and then everyone just jumped on.
But as president, he doesn't have the chance for that, does he?
Well, of course not.
Well, this thing did its rounds, and unfortunately, it's passed away. None of them have the skills to fix it. Right. Thank you for clearing that up, Renovatio. Do you think the protests achieved anything, Trups?
Absolutely not. I think... Well, actually, yes. I do think they achieved something.
What did they achieve?
They achieved showing the rest of the country of the UK and the United States that no one gives a fuck.
You're right. And it was further cemented by the fact that virtually no one turned up. It was cemented by the fact that even Trump himself noticed it outside Number 10 when he was talking to Theresa May. He pointed and said, "Not as many as there were last time."
Awkward.
How can you not laugh that off? And it was also cemented in that when PMQs happened yesterday, so Theresa May was at the D-Day memorial with Trump and other world leaders. That meant the B team were doing PMQs, which was Dave Liddington, the Chancellor and Duchy of Lancaster, up against what was originally Emily Thornberry, but instead it was actually someone called Rebecca Long Bailey, because Emily Thornberry said that she wanted a second in-out EU referendum and got demoted for shining brighter than Jeremy Corbyn. And to show diversity, the entire front row of the shadow cabinet were white. But in that, they talked about the protests, and the first person that stood up to ask a question asked about free speech, because a American tourist was... I'll have to go and find the image, actually. But they were milkshaked, as people are calling it, and called a Nazi.
This was the old guy, wasn't it?
Yeah. He was called Nazi scum by someone. I have to quickly find the image if I can. Or is that a video? I hope it's not a video. Oh, it is a video. That's... it's an ad on it. Oh, I have a video instead. Fuck it. We're going to do that. Right. So, are you going to full screen or not? You're not full screening. Okay, fine. So, we'll go here. This video here in the corner. It's 48 seconds long. But basically, the gentleman was American. He was hit with a milkshake, called a Nazi. Right. So this man, unfortunately, hit with a milkshake. The blonde woman, there's a fallout for her, and we'll get to that in a moment. The guy in Parliament mentioned the fact that free speech is under attack, mentioned that, with Trump being here, whether you agree with him or not, he is still our closest ally. We want to trade with America. So why go out of our way to chastise Americans who made a free decision to choose him as their president? That woman, by the way, worked with the NHS, and I say worked in past tense because she was forced to quit after a rather large petition turned up telling her to basically quit her job. I'll see if I can find an image because I want to leave it on the screen. Where is she? Oh, there she is. What a tolerant looking... Oh, that is not a good picture. That is not... Yeah, we'll put that on the screen. Oof. Ooh, she looks brutal. Couldn't look any more cliche feminist if you try. Yeah, I know. But there is an article of her explaining what happened. She just does feel regret for what she did. But as Prosper in the chat writes, consequences. There's the stand up to anti-racism, stop racist Farage, but this is about Trump. Why is all this up there? I don't understand. It just makes no sense to me, and it was absolutely pathetic. Quite frankly,
Omegon, do you like dogs?
I do like dogs.
Do you like bulldogs?
British bulldogs are quite nice dogs.
Unfortunately, this woman appears to be taking in its likeness.
Oh, if she was a
Do you
little bit
see?
more, the bottom teeth would stick out a little further. Don't it? But you got a point.
But you see the squareness, but also the
Oh,
rotund feature.
it is the worst possible shot of her. I'll say that because those bangs
That
do.
is
She does
unfortunate.
not Fringes like that don't work with faces like that. Grow it out.
Also, honestly, and this is a bit of me being the gay best friend that I always wanted to be. If she let those bangs grow out more and she let the hair actually fall correctly and frame her face, she wouldn't look as bad.
I think even, and I tend to agree with you. I won't attack her appearance because of that, but I think one must understand their own limitations. I can't myself personally have hair anything like that because it just looks really, because I've got quite a big head, so it looks wrong. Either you have it really long or really short. That's the only options I have, and you have to accept that. But
Yeah.
she's lost her job. She's done. She's up against. She was in this protest, this really pitiful protest at that. Because if you look at the people behind the guy on the guy who's after he's been hit with that milkshake, there aren't many of them. There really aren't. And there were threats that people were. I saw Miss Steam on Twitter saying anyone living in the southeast, if you have right-leaning beliefs, stay indoors because people might attack you. Now I didn't know where she was talking about particularly, in particular, but I would say if they came here, oh, the old people would kill them. They would absolutely muller them. Most of them have mental issues, but when that switch goes off, they just beat the crap out of people.
Yeah,
It's
but that's dementia.
yeah, but they'd still beat these snowflakes up.
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I live in a southern part of the United States, and to be honest, we have people with both sides of the aisle views down
Mhm.
here,
Mhm.
and no one gives a fuck. I mean, like they'll get into arguments with you for like a good hour, but like then people go home because they
Mhm.
know that if anything ever aggressed into a violent altercation, there's all possibility that that person's gonna pull a gun on you.
Yeah. No, you're quite right. So continuing with the protests, there were more. There were some protests down in Portsmouth of all places, which is nowhere near London. Fight bigotry, dump Trump. Well, that's that's genius. But you notice the no to racist, no to Trump sign behind. But no, not that one. Here we go. Stand up
That
to
sign
racism.
actually looks familiar.
Mm-hmm.
That was at the Tommy and Sargon rallies.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's amazing.
But then you look at the mob and you're like, wow.
Like
Just
40 people with signs, or
it's
like 40 people and also some signs.
I'm pretty sure half those people are trying to get through to go to, I don't know, Starbucks. It's incredibly underwhelming. And then I left out the bus sign with the baby image. I have no idea where this was taken. It's on the BBC article. I haven't linked yet. I will link all the articles from this stream, by the way, in
Wait,
the...
hang on. Go back to that the red flag, the red stand up to hate
Yeah,
or
got it.
stand
Stand
up
up
to
to
racism.
racism. Yep.
Isn't that the Star Wars font?
It is. It's better than Comic Sans, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. Just
I'll give
wanted to, and one of the other things. Have you noticed the anti-fascists
Mm-hmm.
really love red, white, and black?
Yeah, they're very, comrade.
Mm. And what's the word? Well,
Reckless.
we'll just call this Flammenwaffe.
Fair.
Hans gets the Flammenwaffe.
Good choice. I like
Mm.
that.
Yeah, I like
Anyway,
that
the
one.
protests were absolutely pointless. The visit itself, there were a number of mistakes made that Trump did make, but he did correct them. So obviously the subject of trade did come up. I'm going to go back to us for now because reasons. The NHS was put on the table, kind of, but it's not. Okay, so many of the arguments made were that the American businesses would then start to creep in on the NHS. No. The NHS is, if we're going to work with American businesses, it'll be on innovating new techniques and medicines, perhaps trialing some, Yes. But not selling off our assets of the NHS to American businesses. No. Can't do that because it's then not a National Health Service, is it? At that point, it's private, but we're paying off company. No. We're paying off shareholders. We're not doing that. So with the Trump accidentally did say that the NHS was on the table. The next day, he turned that around. He corrected himself, which in Parliament the disingenuous Labour front bench and the SNP ignored. Even though they both acknowledged it, they then summarily ignored it to make grand points about the NHS being up for sale, which is just laughable. Yes,
so I remember hearing this story, and basically what it came to the United States sounding like was that the UK was upset because they thought that Trump was trying to buy the NHS.
he'd need a considerable amount more than what he actually has.
Right, but like the idea of privatization, especially when it comes from a businessman, like that was the spin they were trying to put on it.
They were
I
trying
read that and I was like, perhaps you want to choose another phrasing because everyone knows that's fucking ridiculous.
It's also the argument being that once it's privatized, that isn't. And I'll say this: the NHS is not for sale. I do not support privatizing it. But the argument that, and they're trying to paint it as such, that privatization is inherently a bad thing, which is where they then say, I want to renationalize everything. And I disagree with this because of how expensive it is for us to then run it. I'm quite happy for private companies to own the trains, quite frankly, because at this point, I don't see us being able to invest the 100 billion needed to actually get it to a standard where we're okay with it without having to borrow, 100 billion. It's just not feasible. Renationalizing water, I agree. Sorry, go on.
Horny Horny Hippos brings up an interesting point, and I wanted to get your explanation because this part is a little confusing to me.
Yeah.
He says, what's wrong with it being on the table? The NHS. And I have no objection to foreigners paying for operations.
Okay.
When they said that it was on the table, what'd they mean?
I believe there were aspects of the... So we do pay some privately owned companies for certain services, which I don't agree with. Virgin, I believe, are one of the major companies that do in fact operate certain services that we need within some hospitals. So yes, Ventilo in the chat, some have been privatised. I disagree with that. I think it should come back. But I know why it had to be done, because we could no longer afford it. We had no money. We had to do something, and that was the actual answer. That was the only answer we had. One day, we have to take them back. When it comes to foreigners paying for operations, if they are a working member of the community in this country and they pay their taxes, or even if they just lost their job, as far as I'm concerned, had they been a taxpayer, they are entitled to access to our services. I believe that you've contributed to our country, therefore you are entitled to that. That is only fair and right. If you are somebody that's come here solely to get an operation, then I think, unless it's subsidised, which I think it is anyway under... Actually, no, Horny Hippos mentions it. EU citizens get operations for free anyway. I think they do. I think it is subsidised by the EU to whichever country it has come, whichever country, that way. But I don't think it should be a case that foreigners should be turned away for operations at the same time. I think it depends on the circumstance of the individual, though. If they've come here just to have an operation, but they make no contribution to the country, and they could have the operation at home, then they should go home and have the operation. If they pay their way in the country, and they need the operation, yeah, of course. If it's elective and they pay for it, fucking, yeah, go for it. I'd say elective for those unnecessary operations that people want to have. If you pay for it, I don't care.
See, now, this is where I divert from my ordinary, right-leaning opinions, because the idea that somebody from another country, let's say you're just a tourist from France or whatever, and you're coming to the country, and you have a horrific accident and you need to go to the emergency room immediately. I am really not opposed to the idea that our hospitals will take you in, and our taxpayer, subsidized Medicaid, whatever, Medicare, will make sure that you can pay for your treatment. I'm cool with that.
I agree.
I think that's fair. Why the hell would anyone want to come to this country if it was a fucking like life hazard, and like that's what tourism's for anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't bother me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you entirely on that.
But like for the rest of healthcare, I see the merits to both of them, and because healthcare in particular is so goddamn complicated, and I've watched a couple of videos of doctors talking about how certain misconceptions about healthcare have been passed around. It's very weird, and I don't like it, and I don't have enough expertise in the field to be like, this is correct.
Yeah.
I'll just go with what we got for now, and like we'll see how things go.
Okay, so that was on the table. It was talked about and then summarily removed. Climate change was also brought up. Theresa May did speak to him about that and say it's real. If you just go on the vague definition, it is in fact real, regardless. That was brought up, and trade was discussed. Of course it was. Which is obviously why the NHS was mentioned. The US and President Trump has openly said he will give us the best deal possible. And I'm inclined to believe that, because he wants that trade deal, because that would be a huge feather in his cap. That's not even an argument. Again, you can't really make an argument against that, because that is pretty much known.
Could you imagine how awesome it would be if our customs and tariffs cost between the UK and the United States were less?
Yeah, it'd be so nice for me to and also it'd be nice to be able to buy booze from your country. Just saying, there are some boozes I really want, and I can't have them because we can't get them through customs.
You know how bad I want European chocolate?
Yeah, our chocolate's amazing, fam. You don't have a clue. So that was all discussed, and it went down well. I do want to go over to Rabbit, because there were some videos I want to play. And I'll, if I can pull up the videos in Rabbit, I will quickly put some earphones in, because otherwise there's going to be feedback. I don't want it. Pause the video. Do not.
It has been a very wet day of demonstration.
Press pause. Fuck you. About, for example, the protest, because it's only a minute long. We should certainly address it. And we should certainly have a look at the Jeremy Corbyn speech as well, because, yeah, we can. So if I full screen that, I think it's full screen. Yeah, I need to full screen this. I love that I've got this on 1080p, but the resolution is horrific. Is it this one? It's this one. Right, you ready? Trups?
Yeah.
Ah, brilliant, right.
Demonstrations here in London, but despite all the rain, thousands of people have nonetheless come out, and they're from a variety of different groups. There are LGBT groups, there are environmentalists, there are people who support Palestinian rights, but they are all brought together by one thing. They say that the British government, the British royal family, should not be rolling out the red carpet for President Trump, and they say...
Where? I see a lot.
I got so fucking offended when they said that.
I see one
They shouldn't be
LARPer.
rolling out the red carpet. And I was like, why?
Yeah, I don't get it. It's it's pathetic. People saying this in Parliament as well. And I honestly, okay. We should, because he's the president. You don't like what he says? Okay, don't like what he says. But he's still the single most powerful person on the planet. We should be working with him. And if we don't agree with something, you don't do it by pouting in the corner and saying, no, not talking to you. You talk to them. You don't puss out.
It's that, and it's like, okay, you have okay. When you meet somebody for the first time, usually a person would err on the side of respect and cordial behavior.
Yep.
You want to give them it's kind of the idea of Southern hospitality, and the reason I use it is because I'm originally from the North, and we don't have that. And somebody explained it very well to me when I got down here. It was when you first come down here, when you are invited into somebody's house, they will treat you like you are family. However, should you during that visit show that you are a dickhead, don't expect to ever be invited into anybody's house in the South ever again, because they all talk to one another. Don't be a dick.
No, I totally agree. I'm gonna at least give this video a finish, because obviously this is from NBC, so expect the stream to be copyright claimed.
Yeah.
That he's a fascist, that he is trying to tear apart this country, that he's a racist, that he's a bully. But President Trump says this is all fake news. President Trump said in a news conference that he saw large numbers of people out on the streets of London welcoming him, and that there were just a few protesters who were put out for political reasons.
Yeah, he's not actually wrong. There were more people there to welcome him than to reject him. It's embarrassing.
As should be done. It's like, okay, just imagine, like, oh, okay, the Queen came to the United States. Everyone would be fucking thrilled.
Yeah, okay.
You know how much fucking press just the Duchess and their fucking baby got here, and the wedding.
Yeah. Okay, so that was also something else that was brought up because ignore that. There was a discussion, obviously, Meghan Markle, because Trump doesn't have much of an opinion in the positive sense for her. Did talk to members of the royal family, that was known about, where he even admitted there were good conversations. Next on the list, because I think this is definitely worth addressing, would be Corbyn, who spent 10 minutes attacking Trump for reasons that I think we should both talk about. I think what I'm going to do, though, I'm going to open the playback control so you can interfere. I think you can press play on that now, can't you?
Yes.
Then by all means do so, because then you can stop it when you want to talk shit about Corbyn.
I'm pressing play, but nothing's playing.
Okay, there we go. Oh, wait, hang on. Screw it. I'll do it.
Take that.
I'll do it.
Yeah, I'll just stop you.
Thank
It's
you,
easy.
Bill,
Yeah.
and thank you, each and every one of us, for being here today. Look around this crowd. Look at each other. We are young, we are old, we are black, we are...
Okay, hold on, stop.
Yeah. Hang on, let me just find the right picture. There it is. It's not the best one I could have gone with. There we go. Looking upon this, it's not the right crowd, but I'm just making the cricket mocking point.
Yeah, but like when you, oh man, when you start off with saying we are young, when you look like that, just like everything you're gonna say after this.
Even
is
when
not
he
gonna
was
matter.
young, he looked old. Have you seen the picture of him younger? Seriously.
Oh, please, dude, I'm almost 24 and I already have gray hairs.
We're white, we're disabled, we're LGBT, we're the whole wonderful mosaic of diversity and inclusion that we represent on this demonstration today.
Hang on.
Yeah. Mosaic.
Alrighty.
Mosaic.
It's almost obligatory virtue signaling at that point. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, look at all these diverse people. I'm gonna guarantee you that about 70% of them are white.
I like that he used the word mosaic. That word.
Why?
I don't know. It just made me think he had a color chart and decided, yeah, that works.
You think he was like trying to come up with like a thing, like a kaleidoscope, like a mosaic, like what do I call them? You know, those people, the people under me. What do I call them?
Servants. Oiks.
The peasants.
The peasants. Well, he isn't exactly a poor guy. He owns his own home. He lives in Islington, North London. The guy he's earned a solid salary for 40 years.
He's not a lord.
He's also not a career politician, even though it's the only job he's ever had.
Yeah, but when you get a government salary for 40 years, you'll be living pretty well.
Yeah.
Anywho's, continue.
Yes, of course.
We are the living embodiment of what a democratic society is about, where people come together not to exploit their differences, but to share the joy of learning something from each other and from...
Exploiting differences. Interesting.
Not only that, but what can you learn from somebody if they're the same as you?
Quite a good point. But exploiting people's differences, that's interesting, because that's the exact thing you've been doing with Brexit. You've been exploiting the fact the party opposite you has been tearing itself apart. What leg do you have to stand on? You can't... Oh, no, let him have... I'll let him have his moment.
each other's experiences, that others may not go through the hardship that so many have gone through to bring about some of the social changes we've achieved. And so, in welcoming visitors from the United States, I hope there can be a conversation. I am not, absolutely not, refusing to meet anybody.
Lol.
I want to be able to have that dialogue to bring about the better.
Shut the fuck up. You rejected the opportunity to meet him, and then when it was rejected, you then offered for him to come meet you. You shifted it because you wanted the ball in your court.
Even the Queen didn't do that.
Even the Queen couldn't do that. If he said that he'll meet the Queen, no, fam. When it was the Privy Council, what happens is you go before the Queen and you kiss her ring. Literally, that's what you do. You get down on your knee and you kiss a ring. You swear allegiance.
As you should.
You swear allegiance to her as a part of the Privy Council. He refused to do it for a very long time. An incredibly long time. To the point where he got mocked in Parliament for refusing to do it, and then while he was complaining about not being privy to certain information that he would be privy to in those Privy Councils, continued to complain. It's just ridiculous. Right, so firstly, you are shadow cabinet. You are weaker than the weakest person in government. That's simple. And you couldn't even beat the most powerful person opposite you that also happened to be weaker than the weakest person in government. And in Theresa May, seriously, she's just weak. Okay. And she'll be gone tomorrow. Interesting.
Really? Already?
June 7th. Or was it June 9th? Doesn't matter, she'll be gone by the end of the weekend. The point is, you wouldn't go. You cannot dictate terms to meet someone or think that you have the power or right to do so when you have no power or worth to them to do so. You are opposition. That's what you are. Carrying on. And by the way, when Theresa May leaves, I may well make a video on it. At the end of the stream, I'm going to talk about some things that we're going to changes on this channel because I think it's quite relevant. Continuing.
And more peaceful world that we all want to live in.
Lol.
But I'm very disappointed, particularly today on the wonderful festival of Eid, that our Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, has been attacked in the way that he has.
After he refused to meet Donald Trump and instead did a photo shoot for a magazine.
When he says attacked, does he mean called mean names?
He does, yes.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to make sure.
If you'd like, we can go through the list of what he was called. I'd start with the word, the acronym, a shorter name for Patrick, which is more commonly known as Packy. Yes, he's probably called that as well.
Oh, I was expecting Pigfucker to be up the top.
Yes, you are in fact a Schweinfucker.
Proud that our city has a Muslim mayor, that we can chase down Islamophobia, anti-Semitism, any form
buzzwords, fuck off.
of racism within our society.
How about anti-Semitism, Jeremy?
I like that he mentioned anti-Semitism unironically, but then also went on to mention after Islamophobia, racism. No, fam. Not the same thing. They're really not. They're just buzzwords. Fuck off.
You know what's funny? It's really funny when I hear all these things back to back, because it's like anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. I'm like, wait a second, but what if one of those groups that you're defending hates the Jews?
Well, there are people within.
Wait a
There are people within both. I will say this, and I have to be honest. There are people within both communities that hate the other faith, and both have claims to legitimate reasons.
Absolutely. And
Actually,
I love how the Christians just decided to fuck off from that fight. It was
Yeah.
like, you know what? The Holy Land, y'all work it out because I'm gonna be over here, okay?
Fam, they just say, fuck it, we got the Vatican.
Yeah, it was the only piece of Rome that stayed up.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's still standing, to be fair.
Oh yeah, especially
Because
after 1500.
Racism divides. Exploitation of minorities divides.
You mean like you do with your party with all this virtue signaling crap that you constant? And by the way, Muslims are not a minority.
And also, wait, yeah, you're right. Wait,
It's a huge
they're the
religion in this
majority
country.
of the people of the world.
They're not just in this country. There are millions of Muslims. I'm sorry, if we're going to do that by population, yeah, sure, they're a minority, but they're not a minority. A minority is nah, fuck it. Because even by religion, they're not a minority in this country.
Also, I want to point out that differentiating by, race, gender, all
Faith.
these things is entirely the point of intersectionality.
Yeah.
And I'm fucking flabbergasted every time I hear about it. I'm just like, what do you mean that you're not racist? You are literally what? What are you talking about? Like, I'll have like actual conversations with people in real life about this. Like, standing in front of me, I'm just like, just the look of incredulity in my face as they speak. I'm just like, what are you talking about? You fucking idiot.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It's just embarrassing. Should we continue with this? Because I like this.
Exploitation of minorities brings about hatred, dislike, disdain, and a horrible place for individuals to live in.
Interesting to point. Okay, because this is actually quite relevant to your country. In the 2016 election, what did the Democratic campaign do? Did it exploit minorities and chastise the majority?
Since for about the last 50 years, yeah.
Right. But of course, he would rather have met that one. Okay.
When you've created that sense of hate, when you've destroyed people's self-esteem by those forms of racism, do you know what? You haven't built a house, you haven't built a school, you haven't trained a nurse, you haven't defended our natural world. All you've done is created a greater sense of hate and hatred that goes with it.
That's interesting. That's really interesting because some of the groups you're willing to sit with would do just that. Cough, cough, Hamas, cough, cough, Hezbollah.
I was gonna say, didn't they launch like 80-something rockets into Israel?
Yeah.
Like a month and a half ago?
Yeah. But let's sit with them. Let's sit with them. It'll be fun.
Also,
Oh, okay. Sorry. Go on.
Can you bring it back like 30 seconds? There was something that he said that I can't remember.
30 seconds exactly.
No, like 15 seconds.
A horrible place for individuals to live in. When you've created that sense of hate, when you've destroyed people's self-esteem by those forms of racism,
there we go.
Do you know what? You haven't built a house, you haven't built a school,
All right. Yeah,
you
okay.
haven't trained.
Hold that thought.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you bring people down because of their race, I was like, yes, because it's okay to be white.
That's racist.
But no, I know it is, and not only that, but it's not okay to be white.
No, and also it's not okay to be straight because that's homophobic.
Yeah, and also you can't even be you can't even have preferences.
Basically, no.
Because if there's a trans woman,
I think this is
she's
just
a real woman.
It's unfair. I think everyone has, whether they like it or not, a preference to something. And there is nothing wrong with that because that is what you are attracted to. It doesn't matter what race they are, what gender they are, what faith they are. It doesn't matter at all. It only matters to you because that is what you want. And that should be how it's treated. Nothing else should matter, but these become such big talking points. I know a lot of people care about Pride Month or Gay Pride Month or whatever Pride Month you want to call it. I don't.
I mean, I'm fine with it.
I genuinely don't give a fuck. I have no reason to care. I have no horse in that race. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're treated equally, I don't give a shit. Celebrate it if you want, but don't shove it down my face.
You know what's interesting too about Pride Month is I'm all fine with Pride Month. I was like, you know what? In terms of marriage rights, y'all just got those.
Yep.
That's a great reason to celebrate. Congratulations.
It really is. I agree.
But coming from myself, who is bi, who has plenty of gay friends. Yeah.
Weirdo.
Yeah, it's fine. But like, there's a very strong difference. There are gay people, And then there are flaming gay people.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have friends on both sides of this. They both like dick the same amount.
Mm-hmm.
But one of them is like, I just live my life, but I prefer dudes. And the other one is like, yes, queen. Fuck yes, slay.
You should always talk like that. Press 1 in the chat if you agree with me, everyone.
Oh, no.
Should we continue with this video, by the way?
Yeah, go ahead.
Alright, cool.
We, as a community and people, have to work together to bring about that different world. We're in the midst of a debate about the future of our relationship between Britain and Europe and the rest of the world.
Before we continue,
And the US.
Thank you everyone for pressing number 1, except for Living the Dream. You make me sick.
The basis of that debate should surely be that we encourage the protection of jobs and living standards and public services and reach out to people all across the world.
Said unironically for a guy who refused to sit with Trump.
But it should not be a debate about how we go forward with no deal at the same time as offering up our precious, wonderful National Health Service to private American companies to...
Oh, for fuck's sake, that was debunked, you ignorant shit. God, it's
Also, I thought he was going to say his great country or something, and I was like, oh, national healthcare system? That was not what I was expecting at all.
You've got more chance of him saying my precious motherland. Honestly.
Was it motherland?
Fuck's sake.
come in and take it over.
Slay Queen.
We will not stand for that. We will fight with every last breath of our body to defend the principle of a healthcare system free at the point of need for everybody as a human right.
It is not free. Anyone who perpetuates this myth is a fucking retard. It's not free. We pay taxes for it to exist. Shut the fuck up.
In the same way, many colleagues from my party, my shadow cabinet and parliamentary group that are here today are proud to put forward the same principle for an education system based on the right to learn and the right to know, not the ability to be able to buy it from somebody else.
Yeah, he breathes quite a lot every other word. This argument about
Fucking dying, dude.
his educational argument, it loses a considerable amount of validity because quite a number of his shadow cabinet members sent their kids to private schools. So that loses all weight, and the argument that private schools are somehow better is also a false argument, since the majority of high-quality people in top positions didn't get their top position by going to Eton. In fact, they got them from working their asses and going up. There are people who, of course, got handouts and got legs up from people, but that's the price you pay, and it's why people make it a point to know people. This education argument is redundant because the education numbers show that academies are working. They are getting the grades, and yet, and this is a key part, he doesn't seem to get this. Education now, and I say this as somebody who has been through a rather hard education, right? Education now is harder than when I was in secondary school, or high school as others call it. I know this because of the scientific advancements and the bar being raised for younger people, because we realised their capacity to learn and understand was improving. I know this because I was waiting at the age of 14 to finish secondary school at 16 because I'd already done everything. I was bored. But now they've increased it, so people like me back then would have done better. It's a simple fact the education system's gotten harder, so the grades have gotten more challenging. So to make sure people get better grades, the quality of school had to improve. Academies have proven themselves to be the right way forward. Whether anyone likes the idea of an academy or not, I don't care. The results show they work. This continued argument that they should all be the absolute same flat rate no matter what is bullshit. Because then you are denying a parent a chance to want to send their kids somewhere else. To send them somewhere where they have a different syllabus, where they have a different chance. We have religious schools in this country. They're not identical to everywhere else, are they? We have gender exclusionary schools. They're not the same to everybody, are they? We have grammar, private, boarding, and local comprehensive. I went to local comprehensive, by the way. It wasn't that bad. Okay, I was bored, but it wasn't that bad.
We could honestly go on for about a 3-hour stream just talking about school.
Honest to fucking God, it pisses me off so much. I may well make a video on this channel just about that, because it fucks me off so much, this argument he makes. Shall we continue, by the way?
Yes, please.
Okay.
It is about the kind of world we want to live in. There is a refugee crisis around the world. There are 65 million people across the globe who have no place to call their own as home.
Well, there's also 65 million people in this country. Please don't tell me you want them here as well, because we don't actually have the space for them.
Home. They're living as internal exiles in some countries. They're living in refugee camps, or they're undertaking perilous journeys to try to reach a place of safety.
Then fix the place where they were, so that they can then live there. I would have thought if you want to live in a world where everyone is able to live happy and free, that would be the solution, as opposed to simply having them come here and not solving the problem that they were running from.
Who's the dumbass who's behind Jeremy?
I don't know. I really don't. I assume they're giving him a haircut.
I just saw that fucking hand pop up, and I'm like, who in the fuck?
I don't know. They're just
Creepy.
a camera phone on his bald spot, perhaps? I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
65 million is more than at any time in recorded history there have
Shocker.
been displaced people on this globe. Can we stop treating people who travel for a place of safety, escape from oppression, from climate change-induced degradation or economic poverty to try to make their contribution to the world? Don't treat them as enemies, treat them as fellow human beings and citizens of this planet.
Right, first of all, no one's a citizen of the planet. That's a bogus position. I would also point out that I don't know where he's got the 65 million people number from, and I don't know how they managed to correlate that data to make it accurate. It is at best an assertion.
And also, like, human beings can be enemies.
Yeah, but
It's very unusual, actually, that you would have enemies that weren't human beings.
His problem is he's an OTT pacifist. He sees the best in everyone and refuses to engage in any potential violence. He can't do it. And the problem he has is he doesn't... I'm very skeptical of this number. I do think it's millions. I'm sure it is. But I'm skeptical that they are all people in need, as opposed to people just looking to take advantage.
I mean, it sounds just like the total population of North Korea.
And the United Kingdom.
Yeah, I know.
Who deserve our support, our sympathy, and our understanding.
I understand.
But recognise, as many of us did when we marched in 2003 in Hyde Park, that going to war has consequences. Consequences for the soldiers who die, who we remember this week from the commemoration of what happened on D-Day. The consequences live on in the disability, the mental health stress, the dislocation, and the flows of desperate refugees. The wars in Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria are feeding this desperate refugee flow. I want to work with every government across the planet to bring about a peaceful world where...
I've got to stop him. He wants to work with every government. Okay, well, the Syrian one is widely and worldly recognised as illegitimate, so who do you work with then?
How about Maduro?
Oh, well, the Venezuelan guy, who he doesn't accept as the... Oh, no, is Maduro the current leader, or is he the guy trying to
Maduro
depose?
is the current one.
Right. Not, he'd probably
Guaido
work...
is the...
He'd probably work... He'd probably work with Maduro, but I don't think he'd work with the guy trying to depose the current president.
Yeah, and you know what's funny? He mentioned Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, and I was like, you know, collectively, the U.S. and the U.K. kind of started that shit.
I agree.
Mostly the
I would
US.
say, I've seen the videos of him openly saying he's against it all. So I will give him that credit. He was against them from the offset, saying it was illegal. And he was right.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't agree with a lot of the deployments that we've had in the last 20 years, but...
No, I don't either. Do you want me to continue? Because we'll get to Trump eventually.
Yeah.
All right, we'll try and get there.
We don't solve our problems by going to war. We solve our problems by an understanding of history and how those conflicts came about.
Who's going to war?
That
Just dropping
That
bombs.
is the intelligent message of peace that I believe we're giving here today in this marvellous demonstration
Of a couple
here in
dozen
Whitehall.
people.
And there's one other thing I want to say,
You can tell by
and
the
it's
applause.
this.
Yeah.
3 weeks ago in Parliament, it was my privilege and pride to introduce, sadly, a very necessary resolution. A resolution that the British Parliament should declare there is a climate and environmental emergency across the whole planet.
But what the fuck does that mean? Okay, we declare it and we say, yeah, this is it in our country. A country where even if we planted every tree we've ever cut down, we still wouldn't be able to make a dent on global warming. We're a tiny rock.
You know, the only people who actually, or rather, the only things that actually suffer because of climate change are people.
I also, okay, so I posited on my stream
I
yesterday.
mean, collectively.
Yeah. I wanted to posit on my stream yesterday that I did, in fact, that I've been going on about saying making England great again as a mega hat, but I think to fix climate change, if we want to do it their way, and we'll put it in the red and yellow and black, we will instead call it Make the Empire Great Again. But the being tiny and minuscule on the hat. I may well make this hat just so I could have it. Make the Empire Great Again. A mega hat. What do you think?
Omega hat.
Omega hat. Oh, yes. I like that. Should I do that?
Fuck it. Yeah, I'll buy one.
I'll make one. I'll get on that. Oh, I'm going to make them happen.
All right.
Make the Empire Great Again. But try and find a way to add an O to it, perhaps. We'll see. That's going to work.
I'm proud to say that it was not opposed, therefore it was carried, and that is the decision of the British Parliament. But passing a motion like that is only part of it. If we are to protect the natural world and environment on which we all depend, then actions have to be taken. A world dedicated to personal profit and greed, to mass exploitation and the most intensive forms of farming, destroys the natural world bit by bit by bit that we all rely on. 60% of wildlife has been lost in this country in the past 40 years, and it's getting faster and getting worse.
Do you know what would make that worse? Having to destroy more of it to make more homes for people that have come here. I feel like there's an obvious issue here where you can't protect the environment if you're flooding your country to the point where you cannot build the homes needed. Just to deal with...
I'm going to get a little bit biological on this, boy, but 60% of wildlife species that have been destroyed from your country do not include any of the microbes and microorganisms that were the building blocks for those creations in the first place.
Mm-hmm. And
so it's almost like if some of them die, and then cause a massive extinction, there will be more.
Nuke 'em all. Omegon makes empires great again. That could work.
Yes.
I like that. I like Make the Empire Great Again. I still like that on its own. But we'll see.
Problems are galloping all around the world. The Paris Climate Change Accord was the product not just of the brilliance of some of the people that were there negotiating it, but in reality, it was the product of decades and decades of environmental campaigners pointing out there have to be limits to how much you destroy the planet. Never forget, protest and activism eventually leads to change.
Moaning. How very British.
And so, I want to live in a world that survives. I want to live in a world that thrives. You do that by respecting the natural world. You do that by respecting each other. You do that by recognizing that we learn from each other's history. So I say to our visitors that have arrived this week, think on, please, about a world that is one of peace and disarmament, is one of recognizing the values of all people.
Nah, shut up. This is a world of peace and disarmament. No, it's not. You ignorant shit. Carrying on.
People is a world that defeats racism,
Lol.
defeats misogyny,
Lol.
defeats the religious hatreds that are being fueled by the far right in politics, in Britain, in Europe, and the United States.
Please
Wake up,
define
sheeple. He's such an idiot. Oh, it's amazing. Oh, I'm loving this. Carry on, please. You were going to say something.
Oh, I was just saying, please define far right.
Yeah, I don't. I think anything... He's so far left, I think anything left... Anything just close to centre is too far right for him.
I mean, yeah.
Sorry. Carry on.
No, I was just agreeing.
Cool.
We have no answers. No answers to young people growing up worried about their future. No answers to communities that have lost their industries. No answers for the people that are desperate in all parts of the world to get somewhere to live. No answers to those people that are desperate to get the medical help and support that they need. No answers to those going through a mental health crisis of any sort.
It's interesting you mentioned mental health crisis because your entire speech reeks of someone having a mental health breakdown. Just saying. He wants to live in a world and then he lists off all these idealistic things. He's edging 70. How many years do you think you're going to get your utopia? Honestly.
All over the world. Do you know what? Together we can make a big difference. Together we can change this world. Together we can bring about that peace and justice.
Cringe.
And by our demonstration here today, we've shown just how determined we, all of us, are to achieve that better place and that better world. Thank you for being here today for peace, for justice and disarmament.
That's all I'm hearing. Like, I'm hearing him get more and more angry. I'm just like, and wait for it. Where's the Roman salute? We got it.
I was waiting for a very subtle, just off the mic. Remember to gas the juice.
Right? Oh my God.
Anyway, people protested Trump. Trump gave speeches. Trump actually had a good time. He got on really well with the Queen. She will not travel to the States. It's known she will never. She's 95. She's not going to travel abroad. That is known. She's openly said that. That's why Prince Charles himself does all the travelling now. So if anyone does go there for a state visit, it would be Charles and Camilla or William and Kate. Or if they really make a statement.
The lady alone.
She's
She's been through so much.
She's 95. She's very much domestic now. She travels on the train, her own personal train, no less, which is kind of cool. I think
she's been through so much crap.
The Queen does have to.
I just realized, like 95. I'm like, okay, so let's go back. That's 1925. She was born. So she was a teenager in World War II.
Fam, she was queen at 21, I think.
I know, and after that she became a queen, and then the rest of the bullshit that happened, she was just like, and...
Oh, sorry, the Queen's 93, my mistake. Thank you, Serene, for the correction. I was 2 years off. Fuck.
1926.
My mistake. I'm 2 years off. Oh, echo from Trups, that's me, sorry. Nope, that is me. I should put earphones back in. That wouldn't happen if I hadn't put the video on. I do apologise, give me a second. Right, there you go, Trups. Speak.
I'm speaking.
Yeah, you're fine. There shouldn't be any echo now. It was fine before they put the video on, but then I took the earphones out and apparently it naffs up the speakers.
Yeah.
My apologies. And I think it would be William and Kate, to be honest. I also think if they really wanted to make a very grand point, perhaps for solidarity, perhaps make it Harry and Meghan, but I don't really care.
I don't care for them too much, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me. I think the visit went a lot better than people expected. And I think this because there hasn't been much coverage of the protests afterwards. It's all been deflated. It's all been swept under the rug because of how underwhelming it was. And I think this is a good sign. It's a good sign that less people are interested now in protesting him. It doesn't mean he's got public support over here. It just means that those who are themselves spreading hate and intolerance and being the very fascists they claim to fight against are dwindling. And that's good, because then if he does get a second term and does come here for another state visit, which if he does, I would love for him to do. I would intentionally, by the way, go to London just so I could see. That'd be kind of cool.
Well, the funny thing is with outrage culture is really you can only be so angry for so long.
Mm-hmm.
You get tired, man.
Mm-hmm.
That is an exhausting lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. It is. It's absolutely exhausting. I don't understand how so many people do it, because it's just... I can't be bothered with it. I just don't care for it. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, well, that's why I don't do it.
Not many people, when they heard Trump's speech, by the way, and I did want to, as a final little point, when he gave his speech with the Queen gave a speech, it was lovely. When he gave a speech, it was incredibly respectful and lovely as well. No one criticised it. That intrigued me, because it was so... I'll link a video of the speech with a timestamp, because it's from a 2.5 hour stream, it's 25 minutes in, and also the Queen speaks just before him, in fact. It's very nice and very proper. You look at it, it is the most... It looks great. I could probably put it on the screen, actually. Yeah, here we go. This. Full on. People can see it on the stream, like all the guards in their full, the highest level of pomp they could possibly wear. Looks fantastic. I think this is a huge sign of how that tide has shifted against Trump, and I think in this country that's a good thing, because we need more tolerance, and you don't get that by moaning about him when you had the chance to go and talk to him.
Well, it also doesn't solve your problem if you're just going to bitch.
No, you're right. It doesn't. I mean, that's where when a lot of people complain about Sargon of Akkad having a go in politics, they lose their argument because he did the one thing they wouldn't do. He got involved. He lost, right, but he got involved. And I think that's fascinating. Did you have any last thoughts on this?
Not really, no.
Okay. Did you want to shill anything before I make a little statement?
So I did a stream earlier this week with a YouTuber by the name of Bad Tempered Badger, and it was a conversation about abortion on my channel. I don't have the link, but it's on my channel. It's the most recent video.
His channel's linked below. Please go subscribe. How did it go, do you think?
Actually, it was pretty good. He is a little bit more left-leaning than some of the folks that I talked to.
Mm-hmm. Nothing wrong with that.
So he came at it from a different point of view, and I think the conversation was very respectful, and we couldn't come to an agreement per se, but we did expand on where we fell short in our arguments. That's
fantastic. I personally decided to distance myself from any discussion of abortion after I saw 7 people retweet a video on my Twitter timeline of some people playing with dead fetuses, and they were playing with them like toy puppets. It made me feel sick, and I couldn't do it anymore. Serene, I'm not quite done yet.
For you.
It's all good. I muted all of them. I'll mute them eventually. So the thing I want to talk about before I finish is the demonetization thing. My channel always gets hit when I talk about injustice. If I talk about like grooming or murder, knife crime, or anything sex related, or politics. So I'm not changing what I do on my main channel as much as I'm shifting some of the content over to this channel. So there will start to be videos on this channel that are politically related. Because I would rather still make those videos and have this channel demonetized than my main channel where I make, well, all my money basically. Mm-hmm. Not all my actual money because I have a real job as well. But the main channel makes a considerable amount more than this channel, because this is pretty much a donation only channel at best. Because when you stream, you don't earn money from the ads. It's just not. That's not how it works. Okay. I don't get demonetized much on this channel, So I will still talk about injustice on the main channel, but I'm going to take a very different approach to how I present it to you. Thank you, Nico, for subbing to both. I really appreciate that, and I'm sure Trups does too. I think with also being able to then continue to talk about politics, which means a lot to me, I can still then talk about it here. So there will be videos on this channel. I'll probably just be as lazy with the thumbnails as I have been on these streams, and just find a photo relevant to the subject, because I still want to do it, but I don't want to put as much time into it, because obviously the main channel is that thing where I'm gonna do one response video a week, perhaps from the BBC, because they're just funny and they don't get demonetized somehow, and for still subjects of interest I think you'll all enjoy. But I have to, again, be more cautious. Until I know what lines can be, or things can be pushed, I've got to be careful. And I have to be more considerate. And that sounds like I'm pussing out or being less of a rebel, but I'm not a rebel in the first place. I'm just some twat with a microphone who's trying to think very carefully about protecting himself. Which I think is a very legitimate position to have, since I've never really been a part of a community, and don't actually care as much about other people as anyone might think.
But if you guys want to make sure that he can keep creating this kind of content even without YouTube assistance, his Patreon is still a thing.
Yes, and I recently got Nitro for my Discord, so I could boost the servers, get some new perks. Increased audio quality, increase the messages, the new banner, and a new server icon that can be animated. I'm working on things. But there will be going forward. There will be videos on this channel as well as streams, and they'll all be political. So if people start moaning that I'm doing political stuff over here, or moaning that there's not enough political stuff here, Karma, I'm looking at you, bitch. I will absolutely lose my shit. Okay.
All right.
I'm going to be streaming more on Twitch as well. I'm going to, during the day, see if I can stream for an hour or two on Twitch with some Euro Truck when I have time. I want to try and increase that as well, be more productive, and why not? I mean, it's not going to hurt me to do it. I would have aimed that at Ash or Joe, but I know that the three of them were planning to abuse me for not doing a political video when I talked about a cat. So fuck all three of you.
Political video on a cat?
No, I did a video on a cat instead of a political video, and I mentioned it. I mentioned people would be moaning I didn't do a political video, and someone would complain about it, and they all agreed to write comments abusing me for not doing a political video. Bitches. Anyway, we are done here. Thank you all very much for joining us. I should be putting out a video tomorrow at some point. I haven't actually written anything down for it, so expect a delay. And I'll be streaming tomorrow on the Omegon Plays channel. And there'll be a video uploaded on the Moisky Read channel, which will be premiering tomorrow at 8 PM GMT. Thank you all for joining us. Say good night, Trups.
Good night, Trups.
Good night, Trups.